On September 1st, 1939, Hitler starts one of the most unforgettable and significant events in history, World War II. Hitler and Nazi Germany invaded Poland from the west, sparking tensions between France and Germany. 2 days later, France and Britain declared war on Germany, beginning World War II. For years to come, Europe will be in dismay and chaos. Between Russia and Italy's involvement with Germany, the war only grows stronger. The United States' involvement was vastly approaching, and it was only a matter of when. On December 7, 1941, 360 Japanese aircraft attacked the U.S. naval base at Pearl Harbor in Hawaii, taking the Americans completely by surprise and claiming the lives of more than 2,300 troops. Finally, the United States declares war on Japan, and at this point in history, the world is at war with each other. It is the Axis powers versus the Allied powers. Meanwhile, in the United States, the Walt Disney Company was starting to become a predominant film studio and a household name. On October 16, 1923, the animation studio was started by Walt Disney and his brother Roy Disney. From a young age, Walt Disney started to draw cartoons for various publications and became interested in cel animation while working for the Kansas City Film Ad Company. After his Laugh-O-Gram studio went bankrupt in 1923, Walt moved to Los Angeles, where Roy and Walt started their new company. This film studio is the birthplace of what is arguably one of the most famous animation characters in history, Mickey Mouse. Many other famous animation characters were also created in the studio, including Donald, Minnie, and Pluto. Together, their team and them would create numerous animation films that are still admired today, including Bambi, Pinocchio, and Snow White. Surely, the company had a bright future ahead of them.
During World War II, American cartoonists and animators used their craft to communicate their views on World War II in a unique way to capture the attention of the general public and to lead to the success of the Allied powers. In 1941, the Walt Disney Company started to make animation cartoons for the National Film Board of Canada. One of those films was The Thrifty Pigs. In this cartoon, it depicts the three little pigs with one of their houses built out of bricks that symbolize war-saving certificates. As the Nazi wolf blows down the houses, he can blow down the one built out of war-saving certificates. This cartoon wanted to communicate how buying war-saving certificates will help protect their house, which is Canada, from invaders. The impact of this cartoon was massive, with the Canada government getting over $13 billion throughout the 5 years, around $143 billion today. In 1942, the United States also made the animation Stop That Tank for the Canadian government. This video was an educational training film to Canadian troops on how to use an anti-tank rifle. This cartoon included both animation and live-action scenes. In the first part of this film, the animation plays, displaying Hitler as obnoxious and idiotic as he attacks the enemy. However, soldiers with their anti-tank rifles stop Hitler, eventually with him falling into a pit to hell. The rest of the film explains how to use an anti-tank rifle to the soldiers, using animation to explain it. The purpose of this film was to communicate to soldiers on how to use an anti-tank rifle properly in war. This film also wanted to communicate the idea of Hitler being weak and foolish, giving the soldiers confidence to defeat the enemies. As Pearl Harbor happened in 1941, Walt Disney and his staff shifted their focus on helping America. Each animation had its own message or action it wanted to portray or encourage the American people to do. The first animation created by the Walt Disney Company for the United States was The New Spirit in 1942. This cartoon shows Donald Duck learning how to pay his income taxes and the importance of the taxes to the war. The cartoon uses fun characters like Donald Duck to make Americans more open to paying their taxes. The purpose of this animation was to convince the public to pay their income tax and to inform how to do so. And out of the frying pan into the firing line, it shows Minnie about to give bacon grease to Pluto, but is stopped by the radio. The radio then explains how meat grease is used to create explosives for the war. The radio also explains how citizens can prepare and turn in their leftover meat grease, bringing it to certified meat stations. The purpose of this cartoon was to communicate the importance of American citizens selling their grease to meat stations to help with war efforts. In 1943, Walt Disney created a different type of animation cartoon, Education for Death, Making of a Nazi. In this animation, Walt Disney took a different approach than he did in his other war propaganda films. This animation communicates the ideas of how corrupt, evil, and ruthless the Nazis were. It also makes Americans think of how terrible the Nazis are, wanting to destroy and defeat them in war. This cartoon also communicates the idea of how stubborn and idiotic Adolf Hitler is. In this cartoon, it shows the German youth being taught the ideas of Nazi, filling their head with nonsense. One boy struggles to accept the ideas of Adolf Hitler, but is raised in a way that will eventually lead to his death.
As Disney and the United States continued to pump out more and more animations for the Allies, Adolf Hitler, who had fallen in love with Disney's Snow White, had established a team of animators to try and make animated films. Soon after, the Axis powers began to produce their very own animated propaganda to support the Nazi regime. The first animation produced by the Axis powers was a short film, Armor Hansi. The film was released in 1945 and depicted a small bird leaving his cage to find love, while eventually learning that the outside world isn't as nice as it seems. This animation shows the Nazi ideology of never leaving Germany and supports the idea of not spending time on going on adventures, but instead staying home and working to support the Axis powers. Another animation that was produced in order to support the Axis powers was the 1936 Japanese animation Evil Mickey Attacks Japan. In the film, Mickey Mouse is depicted as an evil enemy of Japan who brings in his animal friends to attack innocent civilians. This animation was created to vilify Disney in the eyes of Japan's citizens and to help gather support for the Japanese war effort. After World War I, animation will continue to tackle political issues from a wide variety of subjects. In 1968, the animation and cartoon Peanuts introduced its first African-American character, Franklin. After the death of Martin Luther King Jr. in 1968, many Americans urged the animation creator Charles Schwartz to incorporate an African-American character into his works. With Schwartz being open to it, Franklin will become the newest member of the Peanuts family. The purpose of introducing Franklin was to promote unity and equality between both races. At this time, many cartoons were segregated, not including people of color alongside white individuals. However, with Charles Schwartz adding Franklin alongside Charlie Brown, it made a statement on segregation between the two races and encouraged treating people of color with equality. Another modern example of communication through animation would be Dr. Seuss's The Lorax. This film, released in 1972, tells a story of trees in a forest being cut down by a businessman, while the Lorax fails to stop him from cutting down the whole forest. The message of this cartoon is to care for the environment by reducing pollution and trying your best to save it, even when no one else will.
Furthermore, during World War II, American cartoonists and animators used their craft to communicate their views on World War II in a unique way to capture the attention of the general public and to lead to the success of the Allied powers. Through the works of animators, they were able to convey certain ideas to their audience about the war, from informing people on the importance of bacon grease to making fun of Adolf Hitler. Animation communicated a broad selection of ideas to numerous types of audiences. Animation has shown to be very powerful during this time. These animations caused change that will lead to the future of our world. These simple cartoons would encourage patriotism. These simple cartoons informed soldiers on how to win the war. These simple cartoons communicated how the public could help their own country. While many people don't realize it, animation had a profounding effect on the outcome of World War II. Animation will continue to communicate ideas to the public and entertain people for years to come. As Walt Disney once said, animation can explain whatever the mind of man can conceive.